to do what they call contour cherries, and that's, you followed the land lines, and so that you were staying as level as you could, so you didn't get as much washing. And that worked out fine when you were hand picking, because you could take your pickers to those little short rows and then move them again. But boy, when they started using mechanical shakers and what have you, that didn't work at all. The rows were too small and the turns were too sharp, and it was just a crazy way to go. And we had, down at Grandma's, we had a well that had 46-degree water, and we thought that was fantastic to put our cherries in when we shook them. But you got to have about 5 times as much water as we had there to do the job. The first year, I guess we scalded more than we really got processed at the canning factory. We belonged to cherry growers at the time, and they were on Front Street, right now where the marina is. That's where our factory was. So we got through that process, and we figured, well, the next year we could solve the problem with ice, because we had little tanks that hold about 700 lugs of cherries. That would have been a little better than a ton and a half. And so we did. We had 100-pound blocks of ice pulled in to a basement that had the barn had burned. So I was using that as a holding place, and we got in a couple of big loads of straw or sawdust, put on the floor, and then we put the ice, and then we covered it with sawdust. And that worked out pretty well. It wasn't very handy, but you could go slip a couple 100 pounds of ice in your water in the tank and go shaking that, and that would take care of that pretty well. And then we put some in the holding tanks at Grandma's. I cut a 10,000-gallon tank in half and put them up on a wall, because cherry growers at that time had some tankers. They'd come and pick them up for you and take them to the canner. Yeah, we went with that, and then we definitely found that we needed to get wells where we were growing the cherries and pads and that kind of thing. It just stepped up the process. Back in the Depression times, my folks lost their equipment. My dad decided that instead of having to buy fuel, that probably farmers would use horses again more, and so he bought a stallion, and it was $600. The 2 people on the Peninsula said, "Well, Doc, what'd you do that for? People won't pay you." Come to find out, they're the only 2 people he had to go get, like maybe a hog or something for pay. We grew our own meat and vegetables and apples and that kind of thing. And we would bury apples in the ground. The Baldwins, probably never heard of Baldwins or Gray Starks, but they would keep really well in the ground, and then along towards getting spring, Dad would go dig up a bushel of them, and we'd have pie and applesauce and apples to eat. And so we ate well. Back in Roosevelt time, he started the WPA, or whatever you called that, and they built 37. Again, that was part of the project to stimulate money. And so Dad bought a couple of new tugs and whatever he needed for harnesses, so things wouldn't break down for him. And then he went to get a job, and then they got to looking and said, "Well, Mr. Jameson, you can't work on that job." "Why is that?" "Well, you never brought any assistants," or whatever they called it at that time. So he wound up making ice, I remember that winter, for that place in Old Mission where the steamboats come in and people stayed. I think they call it the Pine something. It's still there. We've met there a couple of times as a historical society. Yeah, it was different. We didn't ever want for food. It was a lot better than a lot of the people had. Ferlin and I bought a first little piece of 40 over by Jack Hemmings at Bars Harbor, and then we added another 80 to that. Then we brought the Tiffany place where we farmed that for about 18 years. And then we was hauling petroleum too at the time, and I come home one day, and the hired man was in jail, and I said to Verla, I said, either we gotta finish up farming or we gotta finish up hauling petroleum. And we said, well, let's see what we can do about selling it. And so we sold a piece over here by Bars Harbor to the Hemmings, and we sold the place that we were on to a guy by the name of Eisnick, and they brought, you know, a pretty darn good chunk of change for us at that time. I was able to finish educating our children, and we had the house paid for, so it was financially okay, a lot better than my folks ever were. So, but my wife got into this conservancy thing out here so that they could go to the township and ask them to ask for some tax money to hold some of this land out here to either let it go neutral or keep on farming it, which I think is probably one of the best things that ever happened to the peninsula. Well, we're going to have some open land now for, I think they're supposed to have it forever, but we'll see. No, we won't see it. We'll be too old to see it, but I hope it stays that way. It's a great little piece of land out here, and it's as pretty as you'll ever see in the world. I don't care where you go. You'll come home on that first hill that you come over there and look at both bays and bring tears to your eyes if you lived here all your life. Being in the service and coming home, it was really a great feeling. We like the addition to the house up there at the start of Smoky Hollow. That was the addition was a town hall in Leelanau County. We tore down and brought over to here so we'd have the lumber to build the addition. And the same with the barn that was like 10 years later. We tore a barn down over there, and we brought the sheeting home on trucks, but the timbers we pulled down to Omena and had them all stacked and ready to go. And they built a Chris, it was a 32-foot Chris into a Ponnet boat, but they only had 100 horse gray in it for power. And they got there in the storm and had moved everything around, so it took them quite a while to re-put them together so they could pull them. And they got them in the water and got hooked on, and they got about out around the point there, and there was a little bit of northeast wind, and they sat there. They didn't move for quite a while until about the time that got evening and the wind went down, and then they got them pulled into the end of Bursaw Road on the east side, and that's where they pulled them in there, and then we hauled them up to the site with sleighs. It was quite a project, but it worked out, and a guy from out by Buckley, he put those big timbers together before, so he come and we erected the frame, and then we put the siding and the roof on, and it was, we had it for probably 25 years, and then one evening it burned, and we could see where somebody had thrown a cigarette butt out, and it was a bunch of dead grass there, and it got to the barn and burned her up. And a lot of equipment, a lot of ladders and that kind of thing that went in it. Boy, is that a project trying to figure out the insurance company what you had in something when it burns up, and most of it is wood. But that was quite a feat to take a barn down, take it down to the water, and bring it across a pretty good body of water, and then pull it in and get it back up to where you're going to erect the thing. And it's a lot of fun to put one of those together. It's like putting Legos together, only big size time. You bore some holes and put a lot of pins in and put it together. He tongue and grooved some of those. He knew the size of the barn, and he had us build the wall at a 2 foot all the way around, shorter, so you have room to make the tongue and grooves on the beams and the side beams and that kind of thing. He knew what he was doing, thank goodness. Bancroft was his name.
At Old Mission, and that post office started in 1850, and it's 2 years older than the post office in Traverse City. In fact, in a way, it's responsible for Traverse City being called Traverse City, because if you read history, the post office of Grand Traverse was at Old Mission, and when Perry Hanna sent Tracy Alley to Washington to get a post office for Traverse City, he wanted to call it the post office of Grand Traverse City, and the clerk in the government postal office said that the names were too close together. He'd have to drop the Grand and just call it the post office of Traverse City. So Old Mission can take credit for that in one sense of the word. The name was changed in the Old Mission, or the Grand Traverse Post Office at Old Mission. In 1869, it became the Post Office of Old Mission.
Manigold, M-A-N-I-G-O-L-D. I'm a fourth generation cherry farmer on the Old Mission Peninsula. My family came from Sweden approximately 1893 and settled in Old Mission. I still own that original farm. We've kept it in the family. We did sell the house off, but my great-great-great-grandfather came over and then worked, and he was a mail carrier actually out here, and when he got enough money, he sent for everybody else in Sweden, and they came, and pretty much my family has been.
Put that together with understanding what an easement is. Most people are familiar with the fact that a power company may have an easement that allows them to run a power line over your property. They've been granted that legally. It's on the title. You can't do anything about it. It runs with the property. So with a purchase of development rights program, you take those two understandable rights and put them together, and you say, okay, the right to build a house on the land is different from the right to farm that land. And so a current owner could write an easement onto that property saying, no houses can ever be built here. They are, in effect, extinguishing the right to build a house or the right to develop the property. We are going to a landowner and offering if they would like to sell the right to build on the property, and be assured thereby that that land will never be developed. To make it fair in our program and in most programs, you're going to have to set a reasonable value. So we have an appraisal done which compares what would this piece of land sell for if it could be developed to a developer, and what would it sell for just to someone who's going to farm it. So you compare the two, and probably at the time it might have been $8,000 an acre maybe, or $7,000 an acre for the developer to buy it, and $2,000 an acre or maybe $3,000 an acre for the farmer to buy it. So you subtract the difference. Let's say this was 3 and this was 7. $4,000 is the difference. That's the value of the right to develop. In our case, that would then be an offer from the township. So the offers are tailored to the particular property. At that point, the landowner says yes or no, the deal is closed, the easement is written appropriately, it is filed with the deed, with Register of Deeds, and the township is now responsible to not allow development in that piece. So information is registered with the planner's office. One of the stronger features of our program, which not all programs have done, and there was contention over whether to do this at the time, was we set aside monies that could be used to defend an easement. So if a town board had someone come to them and say, Farmer A is building a house where he has no right to build it, well, they've got a budget, it's built in.
And it took a number of years before we even got the board to put it on the ballot. Every year we would ask.
So at that point, it was incumbent upon citizens to persuade the town board. We polled the community, we went out and spoke in the community, and came back to the town board about 9 months later, and we were in touch with them every month or two. We'd come in and say, well, this is what we found so far, and this is what we're working on, and took it out of the arena of something that was brought by process of a planning commission, subcommittees,